Hi, this is Chanji Ramurthy, and today we are going to talk about topics such as implementation approaches of SOA and economics of SOA. Okay, moving on to implementation approaches. SOA, service oriented architecture, can be done implementing with web services. This is done by building an SOA using web services standards. One such example is SOAP, Simple Object Application Protocol, which we better known as SOAP. Yeah, of course. However, SOA can also be implemented with other service-based technologies such as REST, Corba, Genie, etc. Implementation can be done with one or more protocols in a hybrid fashion, of course. The key is to have independent services with defined interfaces that can be performed in a standard way without a service having a foreknowledge of calling applications. These Thus, SOA enables the development of applications that are built by combining loosely coupled and highly interoperable services. These services interoperate based on formal definition, that is WSDL, which is Web Script Definition Language. In it is independent of the underlying platform or programming languages. Thus, it hides the implementation of language specific services. Economics of SOA. Yeah, moving to the next slide, we are talking about economics of SOA. While implementing SOA, every business model has to consider the return of investment for implementing their service-oriented architecture based on their existing legacy services. So, return of investment is the most challenging factor for any business organization. Few few does provide proofs of return of investment in the form of paybacks, but so far there is no single model has been developed for calculating the return of investment for an SOA implementation. It is due to the fact because SOA implementation can be realized at the different stages of the application transformation. The uh, the picture here depicts the return of investment while implementing a service-oriented architecture for existing legacy application.
Hi, this is Dilip, and let's talk about the comparison between REST and SOAP. Other than the reason that these two are used to implement web services, it's a bit strange to compare them, and that's why the question mark in the title. The reason for this is that while SOAP is a protocol just like HTTP, REST is an architectural style that can use any protocol just like REST or HTTP. REST is relaxed about rules, whereas SOAP is a bit standardized. For example, REST imports security measures from other transport, but SOAP uses its own set of strict security specification. Also, REST as an architecture has freedom to use many data formats like JSON, HTML, plain text, but SOAP can only use XML. To simplify, consider REST to be a horse which has freedom to carry a man without any extra burden, and SOAP to be a horse locked to a chariot where man has good security but with extra weight and complexity. Let's look at the business and sector where service oriented architecture is being used. By the approach of service oriented architecture, small scale companies started running their entire business from the cloud. One such company is M. Dot, which processes digital coupons. Clayton Homes, a home builder, was able to tighten up the operations and increase its efficiency by adopting a service oriented process. US Coast Guard system use service oriented architecture services to track any incoming ships towards US waters and also to keep track of the assets of the Coast Guard. Centerpoint Energy, an electric and oil utility, identified the needs of service oriented approaches in building its smart grid initiative. To wrap up, service oriented architecture was used to make businesses flexible and agile. Service oriented architecture makes use of reusable, loosely coupled software components to implement web services. Principle of SOA, along with the REST and SOAP mechanisms, help in communication between services. Service oriented architecture has helped multiple businesses run successfully and is slowly getting ubiquitous. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bhalachandra. Let's talk about the principles of service-oriented architecture. First principle is the standardized service contract, and what it says is that services within the same service inventory should be in compliance with the same contract design standards. What it does preaches is that a contract first approach to service delivery, whereby contracts are custom developed like according to certain common design standards that could apply to all services within a given service inventory. And the next principle is a service loose coupling, and what it says is that services should always impose a lower consumer coupling requirements, and thereby they themselves could be decoupled from their surrounding environment, let's say the surrounding services. And the next principle is a service abstraction. What it says is that a service contract should contain only essential information about what it is limited to be doing. For example, it should avoid saying like what it is composed of, or what are its dependencies. And next principle is the service reusability. And whenever you develop a service, that service should be like implementing an individual body of logic, so that any service consumer can have only one access point to any given body of logic. And that's what it tries to say. And next principle is the service autonomy. So the services should always exercise a higher level of control over its underlying runtime execution environment, and thereby reducing shared access to service resources and increasing physical isolation can actually raise as a service ability to function autonomously. The next principle is service statelessness. State data management consumes actually a lot of system resources and can result in a significant resource burden when multiple instances of the same services are invoked concurrently. And the next principle is the service discoverability. And so whenever you implement a service, it should be discoverable by the consumers, right? So this could be achieved by having a service registry which could contain metadata information about a service and a pointer to where the service is actually located. So thereby a service consumer can go to a service registry to get the appropriate service for what it is expecting. And the next principle is the service composability. And services should be effective composition participants, and thereby so this requires an effective means of decomposing a solution logic and repeatedly recomposing so that we can solve some new problem.